For decades, it was probably the biggest open secret on the planet. This little patch of Nevada desert that officially just didn't exist. But in our heads, man, it held the keys to the entire universe. So let's get into it. Let's dive into the real story of Area 51. Okay, be honest. When you hear Area 51, your mind probably jumps straight to, what, captured flying saucers? Little green men? It's become this huge part of modern folklore. But the truth that finally came out after decades of total silence, is in some ways even crazier. So, what was really going on out there in the desert? I mean, the legends are just wild, right? We're talking about theories that Area 51 was home to everything from reverse engineering crashed alien ships to, get this, developing teleportation? I mean, wow. And this is the myth, right? It was born from this total black hole of official information. And for the longest time, the government did absolutely nothing to shut it down. In fact, what they did or didn't do just threw gasoline on the fire. I mean, think about it. For more than 50 years, if you asked the US government about Area 51, you got nothing. Crickets. It wasn't on any public map. It was like a ghost. And this giant wall of denial, it created the absolute perfect breeding ground for all kinds of speculation. And then, everything changed. Thanks to a bunch of Freedom of Information Act requests, the dam finally broke. The CIA, in 2013, officially acknowledged the place existed, and suddenly tons of declassified documents started to flood out, painting a very, very different, but honestly just as incredible picture. All right, so let's shift gears from the myths to what we now know is real. These declassified documents, they didn't reveal any aliens. No. But what they did reveal was this secret history of incredible espionage, high-stakes Cold War tension, and some of the most advanced, mind-blowing technology ever created by humans. So, the declassified truth is, Area 51 is absolutely real. Officially, it's part of Edwards Air Force Base, and to the people in the know, it had a bunch of different names, from the kind of funny Paradise Ranch to just Groom Lake. And its whole purpose? It wasn't about anything extraterrestrial. It was very, very terrestrial, and it was aimed squarely at one primary adversary, the Soviet Union. Yeah, the real mission of Area 51 was all about building and testing America's eyes in the sky during the Cold War. This was the spot, out in the middle of nowhere, where the nation's most secret, most ambitious aviation projects came to life, far, far away from any prying eyes. Its history starts out pretty basic. But in 1955, boom, everything changed. The CIA realized they needed a super remote, super secure location to develop the U-2 spy plane. This was going to be a high-altitude bird that could fly right over the Soviet Union. And Groom Lake, it was perfect. And just a few years after that, they expanded the site for a project that was even more audacious. Now, the U-2 was revolutionary, don't get me wrong, but the A-12 ox cart, that thing was straight-up science fiction made real. We're talking flying at over 2,200 miles per hour, right at the edge of space. It was literally faster than a speeding bullet. And it had this strange, flattened, kind of alien-looking shape designed for stealth. And right here, this is where the myth and the reality of Area 51 really start to smash into each other. Seriously, just put yourself in the shoes of an airline pilot back in the 1960s. You're just flying your route, everything's normal, and then suddenly you see this thing, a craft with a design you've never seen, moving at speeds that shouldn't be possible, glinting way up in the atmosphere. You'd have no idea what you were looking at. And yeah, it turns out many of those early UFO reports in that area were almost certainly just sightings of these top-secret test flights. But the government couldn't just come out and say, oh, relax, that's just our new secret spy plane. So of course, the UFO story took hold and just grew. And the level of secrecy around these projects was just absolute. We're not just talking about hiding from the American public. This was a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek with Soviet spy satellites. I mean, the level of detail they went to was just extraordinary. The CIA knew the exact orbital paths of every Soviet satellite, so they would literally wheel these multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art airplanes into their hangars just moments before a satellite was due to pass overhead, and then, as soon as the coast was clear, they'd wheel them right back out. It was a constant dance. This obsession with secrecy is just perfectly captured by this one incident back in 1974. It involves NASA's Skylab space station. The astronauts up there, who had no idea what they were looking at, accidentally snapped a picture of the base from orbit. Well, you can imagine what happened next. Declassified memos show there was just total panic inside the agency. One official wrote, and this is a direct quote, "There were specific instructions not to do this. You can just feel the tension." And this one photo put different federal agencies completely at odds with each other. The DoD wanted it buried forever, but NASA was arguing to release it to the public.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it shows you the internal debate that was going on. The director of the CIA himself, a guy named William Colby, scribbled a note on a memo that basically said, hey, what's the big deal? The Soviets already know it's there. If this picture gets out, can't we just say that classified Air Force work is done there? Give a vague but truthful answer. And this, right here, was really the beginning of a long, slow thaw in the official it doesn't exist position.
So, you see, when you put all these pieces together, it starts to make sense. You can see exactly how the legend of Area 51 was born. It wasn't some grand conspiracy to hide aliens. It was the natural result of a necessary and incredibly intense culture of Cold War secrecy. It really is the perfect recipe, isn't it? You take revolutionary technology that literally looks and performs like something from another planet, and you wrap it in this nearly impenetrable cloak of official denial. What happens next? Well, human nature takes over. We fill in the blanks. The public's imagination cooked up a story that was way stranger than the truth, because the actual truth was completely locked away. So, why does all this matter? What should we take away from this? Well, for one, the whole Area 51 story is a perfect case study in how government secrecy can just pour fuel on the fire of public speculation. It's also a heck of a reminder of the incredible, almost unbelievable feats of engineering that happened under the pressure of the Cold War. And maybe most importantly, it shows us that sometimes the true story, the one about brilliant engineers and brave test pilots and clever spies, is every bit as fascinating as any science fiction.
But that leaves us with one last really tantalizing question, doesn't it? The U-2, the Ox Cart, those projects that created the whole Area 51 legend are declassified now. They're history. But the base itself, it's bigger and busier than it has ever been. So, you have to wonder, what revolutionary, what seemingly impossible technology is being tested out there right now, just waiting for its own declassification, maybe decades from today?